Hello and welcome to History Insight, a YouTube channel dedicated to exploring and understanding the past. Today, we are going to be discussing the practice of human sacrifice in the Aztec Empire, which was a pre-Columbian civilization that existed in what is now central Mexico. As we mentioned in the introduction, human sacrifice has been a part of many cultures throughout history, often tied to religion. However, no culture took the act of human sacrifice to such a large extent as the Aztecs did. In order to understand how this came to be, we must first delve into the religion of the Aztecs and the myths and rituals that drove their need for human sacrifice. The Aztecs were a polytheistic culture, meaning they believed in multiple gods and goddesses. Their pantheon included deities associated with the natural world, such as the sun and the moon, as well as gods of agriculture, war, and other aspects of life. These deities were believed to have a powerful influence on the world and were believed to require regular offerings and sacrifices in order to maintain their power. There are two main Aztec creation myths, and while they may differ in some details, they both involve the concept of repeated cycles of creation and destruction. According to one version, the universe was created when the god Ontiatl, who was both male and female, gave birth to the god Quetzalcoatl and the goddess Xochiquetzal. Quetzalcoatl and Xochiquetzal then created the first humans and the first sun. However, this sun was not strong enough to sustain life, and it was eventually destroyed. After this, Quetzalcoatl and Xochiquetzal created a second sun, which also failed. This cycle continued until the fifth sun was created, which was strong enough to sustain life and allowed the world to thrive. But the Aztecs believed that this fifth sun would also eventually come to an end, and the world would be destroyed once again. In order to prevent this destruction, the gods required regular sacrifices to nourish and sustain them. These sacrifices could take many forms, including offerings of food and other material goods, but the most valuable and powerful form of sacrifice was human sacrifice. The Aztecs believed that human sacrifice was necessary to appease the gods and prevent the end of the world. They also believed that by sacrificing themselves, individuals could achieve a higher status in the afterlife and enter the paradise of the gods. This belief led to a culture where human sacrifice was prevalent and even seen as a noble act. There were several different types of human sacrifice practiced by the Aztecs, each with its own specific purpose and symbolism. One of the most common forms was the sacrifice of prisoners of war, who were captured in battles with neighboring tribes. These prisoners would often be sacrificed to the gods of war and the sun in order to ensure victory in future battles. Another type of human sacrifice was the sacrifice of children, who were seen as pure and innocent, and therefore particularly pleasing to the gods. These sacrifices were often performed during times of drought or other natural disasters, in the hope that the gods would provide relief. The most famous and elaborate form of human sacrifice practiced by the Aztecs was the so-called flowery death, or Xochipilli. This was a ritual sacrifice in which a person, usually a young attractive male, was chosen to serve as a sacrifice to the god Xipe-Totec. This sacrifice was meant to symbolize the renewal of life and the cycle of death and rebirth. The person chosen for this sacrifice would be treated like a king for a year, given the finest food and clothing, and participating in various ceremonies and rituals. At the end of this year, they would be taken to the top of a pyramid and stripped of their clothing and adornments. They would then be laid on a stone altar, and their heart would be cut out as an offering to the gods. It's important to note that while the Aztecs did practice human sacrifice on a large scale, they were not alone in this practice. Many other cultures throughout history, both ancient and modern, have also engaged in human sacrifice for various reasons. In some cases, human sacrifice was believed to be necessary for the continuation of the world or for the well-being of the community. In other cases, it was seen as a way to gain favor with the gods or to achieve a higher status in the afterlife. One example of a culture that practiced human sacrifice is the ancient Greeks. In Greek mythology, human sacrifice was often associated with the god Dionysus and was believed to be a way to achieve a closer connection with the deity. Dionysian cults were known for their extravagant rituals, which often involved the sacrifice of animals and, in some cases, humans. Another example is the ancient Mayans, who lived in what is now Central and South America. The Mayans believed in a complex pantheon of gods and goddesses, each of whom required regular sacrifices to maintain their power. These sacrifices could take many forms, including the offering of food and other material goods, but human sacrifice was also an important part of Mayan religion. It's worth noting that while the practice of human sacrifice has been widespread throughout history, it is generally seen as a barbaric and reprehensible act in modern times. Most modern societies have rejected the practice, and it is now illegal in most countries. The Aztecs were a highly sophisticated civilization with a complex society and advanced systems of government, agriculture, and trade. They were also known for their impressive architectural feats, such as the construction of the city of Tenochtitlan, which was the capital of the Aztec Empire. The city was built on an island in the middle of a lake and was connected to the mainland by causeways. It was home to hundreds of thousands of people and was a center of commerce and culture. The city was divided into 4 quarters, each associated with a different deity, and at its center was the Great Temple, which was the most important religious site in the city. The Great Temple was dedicated to the god Huitzilopochtli, the god of war and the sun, and was the site of many of the Aztecs' human sacrifices. The temple was a massive structure, with a base that measured around 100 meters by 80 meters. It was topped by a series of temples and pyramids, with the highest pyramid rising to a height of almost 60 meters. The Great Temple was also home to a number of other deities, including the rain god Tlaloc and the earth goddess Tosi. Each of these deities had their own specific rituals and offerings, but human sacrifice was an important part of the worship of all of them. The Aztecs were known for their highly organized and efficient system of human sacrifice, which was carried out by a group of trained priests known as the Tlamatcasca. These priests were responsible for selecting the victims, performing the sacrifices, and preparing the bodies for burial or cremation. The Aztecs believed that the heart was the seat of the soul, and therefore the heart was the most important part of the body to be sacrificed. During a sacrifice, the victim's chest would be cut open, and their heart would be removed and offered to the gods. The body would then be disposed of, either by burying it or cremating it. Human sacrifice played a central role in the religion of the Aztecs and was seen as a necessary part of maintaining the balance of the world. However, this practice was not without its critics. Some members of the Aztec society, including some of the ruling elites, opposed the practice and tried to reduce the number of sacrifices that were carried out. These efforts were often unsuccessful, however, as the belief in the importance of human sacrifice was so deeply ingrained in Aztec culture. The Aztec Empire came to an end in the early 16th century, when the Spanish conquistador Hernan Cortés arrived in Mexico and began to conquer the Aztec people. The Aztecs initially tried to resist the Spanish invasion, but they were eventually defeated and their empire was dissolved. One of the reasons the Aztecs were unable to resist the Spanish was that they were weakened by years of internal conflict and by the impact of European diseases, which had devastated the Aztec population. The Aztecs also faced significant ideological challenges, as the Spanish brought with them a different set of religious beliefs and practices. Human sacrifice played a role in the Aztecs' defeat, as the Spanish saw the practice as barbaric and sought to stamp it out. The Spanish also sought to convert the Aztecs to Christianity and to suppress their traditional religious beliefs and practices. Today, the practice of human sacrifice is generally condemned and rejected by most societies. While it may have played a role in the beliefs and practices of some cultures in the past, it is now seen as a barbaric and inhumane act. Thank you for watching, and be sure to check out our other videos for more fascinating insights into history.